It's time to start rating all of the cards for Battle Spirit Saga being released in Dawn of History and the 4 starter decks, and we're starting with the Burst cards. I'll be rating these cards out of 5 stars. 5 stars meaning it's amazing and will see success in Tier 1 decks and beyond. 1 star means it's terrible and won't see play at all. We'll begin with Red, starting with Starblessed Draw. 5 stars. I already talked about why I think this card is amazing in my top 10 red cards video, and my opinion has not changed. It's always live against purple and yellow. It's still really good against white because Valkyrie missed as a card. The only color it's not that good against is red, and even then, you can still get value against the Star Dragon deck. I mean, what are they going to do? Not play Zigworm Nova? This card is great. All red decks will want to play this, and even some non-red decks will consider playing it. Firewall. 4 stars. Another card I already talked about. It's basically Ice Shield at home for red. While it doesn't end the battle step outright, it stops enough things that it basically does the same thing. The only reason I'm not giving this the 5-star treatment is because it does conflict with Absolute Ice Shield, but I still think most red decks will also play this card. It helps that, for red decks, this is 1 core cheaper, which is a big deal. Landmine. I remember when I saw this card for the first time and thought this would be a staple in every deck. Anyway, 2 stars. I do think some people will at least try it. I don't think it's an outright bad card. Ultimately, though, there are just better removal cards to play in every color that I don't think there's room for this. Speaking of removal, Flame Breath. 1 star. Play Counter Sword instead. More on that later. Feral Slash. This one is surprisingly difficult to evaluate. Bandai advertises this promo like it's going to be a staple, but for me, I think it's better to call this a tech card, which is why I'm giving it 3 stars. What saves this from being just another landmine is its main effect to destroy a Nexus. Flipping this burst on the opponent's turn to get rid of 2 cards is pretty strong. I don't think it's good enough to play in non-red decks, but I do think red will at least consider playing this, depending on the local meta. We move on to purple, starting with Bloody Rain. This is one of those cards that's good if the opponent isn't expecting it. And even then, I don't think it's good enough to play over other bursts. But what makes this card hard to evaluate is that it's not locked into purple. So for that reason, I'll give this card 2 stars. I think people will experiment with it, but like I said, I don't think it's good enough in competitive over other cards. Dark Matter, 3 stars. This is a card that I think is almost really good for specifically purple curse decks, but is just not quite good enough. The idea is to recover one of your smaller curse spirits for later pressure while also getting rid of an opponent's spirit. It's tempting for sure, but I don't think the curse deck has room for this. Burst Venom, 1 star. This card is just terrible. I get that purple decks could use this to combo with some other core removal card, but there are better things to be doing. I legitimately think you'd be better off playing Landmine over this. Poison Shot, 2 stars. This card is similar to Dark Matter in that it's almost really good, but doesn't do quite enough. It's not overtly bad like Burst Venom. You can actually play this and not feel bad about it. I think you'll see some people at least try this card in purple decks. Dream Bomb, 4 stars. Funny enough, its burst effect is not very good, but I rate it highly for its main effect. Being able to bounce any spirit at flash timing is extremely important. White especially likes this card because it answers cards that it wouldn't otherwise be able to, like Meduk and Zigworm Nova. I don't think this is necessarily a card you jam into every white deck, but it's really good. Absolute Ice Shield, 5 stars. I'm not sure what to say that hasn't already been said. This card is great. You know it. I know it. It'll see play everywhere. Moving on. Counter Sword, 4 stars. A card that spins a spirit to the deck that can be played in any color is really good. Yes, it's situational. You can't just activate it anytime you want. But, like Dream Bomb, being able to get rid of any spirit without proccing destruction effects is very good. It won't be in every deck, but expect to see a lot of this card. Holy Elixir. 2 stars. This card is weird. I'm pretty sure non-white decks don't want to play this, and honestly, I don't know if even white decks want to play this card. I think you'll see the Fanatec Elk deck experiment with this card, but beyond that, I don't think this card is that good. For the yellow bursts, we're going to rapid fire this. Ascension 0, Puppet Strings, Imaginary Gate. All of them are 1-star cards. Puppet Strings is just bad. Ascension 0 is a very niche effect that really wants to be a normal flash effect to be playable. And I think Imaginary Gate is bait. If its burst activated on the destruction of your spirit, it would be way better. As is, it's way too slow. Besides, the 2-cost deck wants spirits in the discard for the behemoth. And the final burst, Exhaust Nexus. 4 stars. I almost want to put this at 5 stars, but unfortunately I don't think the yellow luster deck will be tier 1. I talked about this card in my top 10 yellow cards already. For Michaela, this card just reads wipe the opponent's board. It's really good. I don't think this card is good enough to be played in the 2-cost deck, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some people crazy enough to try it. And those are all of the burst cards. I'm currently working on the video where I will rate all of the other cards. It's just taking longer than I thought. If you're wanting to see that video, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss it. Until next time, laters.